All right, hello, welcome back everyone to Coping with COVID. We're glad that you're here with us and we're very pleased that we can share with you some hopeful ideas and comments then about dealing with this pandemic. Want to welcome a very special guest that is here with me today. Again, I'm Dr. Nicholas Taylor with the Center for Mental Health. I'm a licensed psychologist and have with me here Marty Kluet von Rani. Marty, welcome.
Thank you.
And Marty, just for starters, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I work for the center up in Hotchkiss, and I'm also school-based, so I'm kind of going around all different five schools, but I also have the clinic there. I'm kind of a one-woman show out there and kind of do it all, working with all ages.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And so the topic for today is really what we want to kind of get our teeth in today, because I think it's a good one. And this is about kind of coping with change during COVID, because change is kind of upon us, whether we like it or not. And so our discussion today is really about how it is that we handle change in general. So Marty, I'm curious, you've been working with people doing televideo therapy. What have you noticed about how people are dealing with the changes that are upon them as a result of this?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nick. For the most part, I'd say people are pretty resilient. Most people I'm seeing are handling things pretty well, rolling with it. But I'm also noticing some people, of course, are getting, nervous and anxious about the things that are coming down the pike and not knowing when this is going to end. So it's a mix. I really see a pretty big mix.
A big mix. I could see that. You used an important term that I think deserves just a little bit of attention. The term was resilience. And you talked about how some people seem to be building resilience. How do you think resilience, well, first of all, what is resilience? And then how do you think it is that we build it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, to me, resilience is our inner strength, like our inner resources, our ability to drop within, especially when the world outside is getting really chaotic and weird and, full of uncertainty. The ability to drop within and realize in this moment I'm okay. Like I've got my family, I've got my friends, I've got my loved ones to reach out to, I've got my dog, I can still go for walks in nature. Like all of those things kind of add to that feeling of resilience of like, I've got this, I'm okay. I don't understand what's happening, but I'm going to be able to get through it because I have all these connections, either, even to myself, maybe it's practices. Maybe it's reading books and journaling and making art, things that help me feel good. That builds up my resilience. It also boosts the immune system too, as far as
go figure.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, very helpful. Thank you. I was thinking of something that I heard just the other day, and then we do have some comments that have been emailed in, and we'll get to those. But somebody was talking about how helpful it is that we focus on what we can do and not just on what we can't, because boy, when you start hearing restrictions, all you think of the things that you can't do. But I love how you were making reference, hey, there's things that we can do. Maybe it's we're discovering new hobbies or interests or opportunities for change in ourselves even. So I really like that. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
So here's a question. Everyone keeps talking about there being a new normal. I have no idea what that means for me. What am I supposed to do? Well, I think that's very good because, we hear that term kind of tossed around frequently, the idea of a new normal. I think a lot of people have no idea what that means. That's almost like saying, well, imagine the opposite of air. How do we do that? Because what is normal for us is what we've experienced. And so I think what that's really making reference to is the concept of uncertainty. We just don't know. And it's getting used to the idea that there are some things that we're just not going to know. And as I've been, of course, working with people and everyone in our listening audience knows that the Center for Mental Health continues to provide counseling services. We're doing it via televideo, and I do it here in Montrose, and Marty is there in the Hotchkiss area providing services as well. But what we're hearing is that people are just having to adjust to the fact that we don't know. We just don't know some things. And so, Marty, as you think about how we tolerate uncertainty, what comes to your mind in terms of some important pointers or tools that might be useful?
Oh, you bet. That is such a good question. And it's a big question. I mean, really, do we only have 20 minutes here? Because
Yeah.
talking about uncertainty is pretty huge. And part of it is like our relationship to uncertainty. You know, sometimes we think that we think of certain things being a given, like taking things for granted. We have a sense of security. We're planning for tomorrow, things like that. And sometimes things happen in our lives that just come out of left field that we're not expecting and shake up that whole sense of security that we had. And this is actually in relationship to what's happening right now, but across the board for everybody. It's not just isolated cases, right? So part of it is how do we be with not knowing what's coming ahead, and how do we reduce our anxieties and nervousness
Mm,
or fears that we might have about what's coming, knowing that I know for a lot of people sometimes they start thinking about what could happen, you know, like what's the worst thing that could happen,
mm,
and then start focusing on the worst thing that could happen, or like fearing, for instance, that we're not going to be able to return back to normal. And then we start getting tense. We start feeling like that's really happening right now. So somatically, we start having this big response of getting super stressed out about something that's not even happening. Because what's actually happening right now is, you know, our listeners are probably sitting in their living room watching
mhm,
this. They're probably
mhm,
safe. They probably got their dog next to them. They're
mhm,
actually, it's a beautiful day outside. Well, it's a little cloudy, but you know, there's actually, if you look at what's happening right now, it's okay. Actually, I'm feeling pretty certain right now that I'm
mhm,
feeling okay. Does
mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah, so kind of focusing on that instead, maybe, and having that be present for you.
Being present with what
Mhm,
is.
mhm,
Like, what do
mhm.
we really know? We really don't know what a month from now is going to look like, but we can tell right
Right,
now
right.
we're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that. The idea of just kind of sitting with being okay for right now, and I would hope that that would bring some comfort to people that maybe are feeling that sense of uncertainty that we're talking about,
You
uncertainty
know,
with change.
mindfulness practices is one of the things
Yeah.
that really help people come into the present. That's really strongly recommended. I know My
Mm,
Strength, I think, is one of the tools that we have for the public as well. And that has a lot of mindfulness practices in it. So
mhm,
being
mm.
able to come into the present.
Yeah, and I'm glad you had mentioned My Strength, because on the Center for Mental Health website, we do have a number of resources, one of which is My Strength. We also have other resources for just dealing with COVID-19. So if you're looking for some resources, please don't hesitate to visit our website. And I think it also bears mentioning, because we are talking about uncertainty and some of that, difficult feeling that you might have when that's present. If it ever gets to the point where you feel like you need to talk to somebody right away, we would want you to know that the Center for Mental Health does provide a 24-hour support line, and you can call that anytime. There is a live person who will respond to you and will talk with you. That number, we'll keep it, of course, here on our Facebook posts, and it's on our website. But that number is 970-252-6220. Just want to make sure that everyone knows that that resource is out there. So very good. We had another question come in. I thought this was a pretty good one, having to do with everyone keeps saying that you keep hearing different things about what I'm supposed to be doing, what I'm not supposed to be doing. And people feel confused. Am I supposed to be doing this? Like, for example, I knew I was going to be interacting with you, Marty, and I haven't seen you. And so I'm thinking, oh, I should wear a mask. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's okay to not wear a mask. But I think we find ourselves asking those questions, like just the other day, we ran into some friends. We were just shopping for some plants and being very careful, but they wouldn't let us into this area, into this nursery, unless we were wearing masks. So everybody in there had masks, which was great. Well, then we ran into some friends. We kind of looked at them, and we weren't sure who they were at first, and they didn't know who we were. So it's like we're having a hard time even recognizing each other sometimes. But it is true that there are some things that we need to be doing so that we together really take care of this pandemic. And it's something that we can take care of, all of us together. And then we're also hearing a lot of opinions about other things. So I think this goes back to the question that we mentioned earlier, which is just coping with uncertainty. That we want to seek out good information. And of course, the best information is going to come from public health officials. So if ever there are any questions about what I should or shouldn't be doing, I think Governor Paulus's Safer at Home order is an excellent resource to look to. And I think just having that knowledge, I don't know if you agree, Marty, I think just knowing what it says provides that sense of stability because, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to do because this is what's been ordered. I'm just going to follow what this says. What do you think?
I agree, because that's like you've got people who are the top minds in the field. You know, you've got your scientists, your medical doctors, you've got people who are deciding what actually needs to happen at this time. And if, you know, and they have a lot more experience in this field than I do. So being able to refer to them and say, okay, they're the ones studying it. They're the ones who have access to all this knowledge, and to be able to say, I'm going to listen to what they have to say, even while all of us are kind of in the same boat together of like not knowing how this is all going to play out. We have some really great, you know, people who are, you know, that are looking out for us.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. And that
Take
does help. It
advantage.
does give us a little trust and a little
Right.
that, you know, some people are working on this. This is not
Right.
just us floating around out here trying to wing it. There are people.
Am I supposed to wear a mask when I'm on Zoom? Okay, so another question. So we have an opportunity now as we come back to a new normal to actively create change in a positive, forward-thinking way. How do we make sure the change is for the better?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That makes me think of, actually, I had an amazing experience just recently with a televideo therapy session, and it was with, there are couples that are kind of seeing this as an opportunity to really work on their marriage or on their relationships. And I think that's fantastic because you're kind of having to spend more time together anyway. You know, now would be a great time to make sure that we're making changes in the right direction. Marty, what kinds of changes do you see people making in some of the work that you're doing?
Well, first off, I could say one of the most awesome changes is that we can do teletherapy now.
Yeah, right.
And people, if they're feeling sick, they can still come to their therapy appointments or reach out and get help and not try to stay home and wait it out. Oh my goodness. So I'm really happy about that change. And, you know, there are positive changes in that people are being invited to slow down and really pay attention to each other more and to their families more and their home space more. I mean, if you think about the way things were a couple months ago, people were kind of, you know, hustling around and getting to work and doing all the busy activities in the outer world, and of course going to music events and all the other fun stuff. But at the same time, it was like go, 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 and there maybe wasn't as much time spent on relationships. So, and also on personal creativity. So, some of the positive changes I'm seeing with people is that they're starting to pick up those activities, they're starting to pick up those hobbies, or maybe they're doing the home improvement they've been wanting to do. You know, like they're finding things to do to be at home and be with this slowing down time. That's actually, I mean, I don't want to emphasize production, but still they're doing things that are meaningful to them.
Right.
Because I don't think it's important to be like super productive right now. I think it's okay actually if you need to slow down and do a whole lot of not much, because that's okay too. Like everybody has a different way of coping with stress. Some people need to get busy. Some people need to slow down and just talk to their friends and family and feel that closeness. So there's a wide range. There's no certain answer for that, but I think that this is a huge opportunity for us to really take the time to think about what's important to us. Like, what's my value system? Like, what do I want to take from this experience? I mean, it's sort of like, if you look at it, reframe it, you could call this like a retreat that we're all on.
Right.
What
a reframe. Wow.
Yes.
The pandemic retreat. Hey, works for me.
We're on retreat. We're all on retreat. You didn't have to pay a lot of money for it. And you get to examine your life and your values and the way you're structuring your life. Maybe the way you're structuring your work-life balance. Maybe, you know, where your family fits in with what you're doing all the time and what's really important, because maybe there's some activities that you don't need to pick back up again after this. Maybe there's, you know, certain ways of being that you don't pick up after this. Like, it's an opportunity to say, wow, let me get more real with my life and really take charge of what I want to take with me moving forward out of retreat, at
Right.
what I want to leave behind. Oh my gosh, I'm
Mm.
feeling like this is a transformational event now.
Right. Wow. Wow. That is so powerful. You know, it made me think of it. It made me think of experiences that I've had, and I'm sure everyone's had this. When you're like cleaning your closet, you know, I mean, you're forced to really ask yourself, okay, I have not worn this shirt in 6 years. I think if I have not worn it in 6 years, it's probably okay for me to give it to secondhand or give it to somebody else. So, you know, and I think that applies to everything. I mean, basically, we've had to step back and kind of lay out everything in front of us because we had to just kind of come back to what we have and the bare minimum of what we deal with, and like you said, really ask those questions. What has value and what do we want to keep? I think that's wonderful. I'm going to hang on to the concept of the pandemic retreat. My goodness. All right, another question came in. So, oh, this is interesting. Listen to this one. So everything around me is opening. People are starting to spend time with one another, but I'm at risk and need to keep myself physically distanced, even though things to be going back to normal. I want my life to go back to normal too, but how am I supposed to cope with this without an end in sight? Ooh,
Mhm.
wow.
Wow, it's a good one.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. Let me think about this for a second.
All right. Well, while you're thinking, I think that there are a lot of us that kind of recognize, going back to what we were saying earlier, with that sense of uncertainty comes a little bit of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, that fear is warranted. It's not like we're making stuff up here.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that fear is warranted. I believe that, and I heard this the other day when someone was talking about why it is they wear a mask in public. They said, you know what? I don't know that I necessarily agree with the whole concept of wearing a mask in public, but I do agree with the concept of respecting other people. And so
Mm.
someone like this, who is going to be, you can see it in someone's eyes, who is out in public and feeling uncertain and feeling exposed and maybe a bit vulnerable. Hey, I'll put my mask on because I know that makes you feel a little bit better. So
Mm.
I would say, in terms of helping this person cope without there being an end in sight, I think it also starts with the rest of us. We say that's okay. So even if things are opening up, maybe in some ways, what's not going to change is we're not going to forget that we've learned to respect each other.
Nice.
We've learned to really take into consideration someone else's needs, someone else's circumstances. I still am just completely amazed how friendly people are as I walk around at a distance out walking my dog, and somebody will go out of their way to step over and say hi to me. And we kind of have that across the street connection
Nice.
that I think is really nice. I hope that doesn't end, you know.
I agree. There's a lot of caring.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that. A lot of people caring about each other, even people just
Yeah,
wishing each other good health and
right,
just being a little kinder and a little slower, instead of
right.
just rushing past each other, really noticing each other,
Mm,
looking out for each other. And I wanted to say, that with the question around being at high risk and wanting to return to normal, and everybody else seems, or a bunch of people seem like they're returning to normal. I don't know how many. Um, you know, what's another month? What's another month or
mm,
two versus
mm,
getting sick if you're high risk?
right, right.
It is worth it to say my needs are different than maybe my neighbor's needs. My
Sure.
neighbors have gone back to work. Maybe I don't feel ready if I feel high risk. Maybe
Mm,
that's okay, that it's different. It's not one of those things that one size fits all. It's
mm,
it's going to be different for each person that has to evaluate not only their own health, but their family members' health, or if they're taking care of elderly parents. They have to take all those factors in and to realize that some people might feel confident returning to what they call normal. It's not normal out there, I don't think, quite
mhm.
yet. um,
Yeah.
and then there's other people who maybe just laying low for another month or two to kind of see how it pans out. That's okay.
Mm,
That's what's being recommended. Safer at home, right?
right, 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 right,
Recommended lay low. If you can lay low, lay low.
right. Still kind of the whole concept. Very good. Thank you. And positive thoughts and hopes out for those who are, especially vulnerable, and hoping that they are able to be okay. So we're about out of time, but before we wrap up, I did want to take just a moment to mention our Facebook Live broadcast, which will be next week and at noon on Tuesday. And the topic that we'll be talking about next week is actually motivating ourselves. And I think that fits wonderfully with something that Marty was sharing earlier today about taking advantage of this time to maybe make some changes in ourselves. And so we'll be talking about how it is that we motivate ourselves, and how it is that we, maybe we know some things that we need to be doing differently, and how we can get ourselves kind of moving forward to maybe take care of some of those things that we're really wanting to do. Marty, it's been wonderful having you with us. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you everyone, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a lot.
Nick. Bye-bye. Take care.